Pike's pushed more and forward up ahead. He's got out of line. It's now Pike going to have a go at Werrell. Don't push him off. He's in the championship fight. Jack Werrell chasing down Carl Jacklin. Further down, Rob Williams and Chris Barnes.
Sensational run outside line now though for the heavy braking zone. Around the outside goes the Audi R8.
Look how much Miller's come back into play. Exactly. Miller's still such trouble. He's left on second and change. All of a sudden, Miller's back in play.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Man, it's been a minute since I've done that. It is a Thursday night. It's a good night for GT3 cars. It's been a while since I've broadcast something that's not just going in a left-hand turn on an oval. And I tell you what, as someone who likes to sing doot, 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 Max Verstappen, it's nice to be in the Netherlands at the Circuit Zandvoort here for the Simcar Grand Am Championship. It is round 2, live again with Penguin RC Simulation from... I said it once, I'll say it one more time. Zandvoort. My name is Bradley Dalton. I'm going to be joined by the beautiful Howie Burrows, who will be joining me in the booth here momentarily as we get things underway. As I said, it is round 2 of this 8-round championship. We're last out at Spa 2 weeks ago, and that was headed up by Mr. James Parfit and Hamad. And then from there, we go to the Red Bull Ring. From there, it's all the way over to Road America. And then it's going to be Barber Motorsports Park. And then, of course, we have to bring in Le Mans. If you're going to run a GT3 championship series with Pro and Am, you got to have Le Mans. And then there will be Sandown. And we will end all the way on December 12th at Road Atlanta Michelin Raceway. And that will be how Simcar goes. If you're unfamiliar with this league and you're kind of saying, well, what's the race format? What am I in for tonight? Well, we've got qualifying underway now, which we'll bring up here just momentarily. I'll get this block of text off of your screen. So we'll have qualifying out. And then from there, we will have a 15-minute sprint race, which is set the grid by our qualifying. And then from there, it is going to be a 5-minute cool down / warm-up session, as I like to call it, and then a 45-minute feature race where the top 8 from the sprint are inverted, one quick repair for each moment, and plenty of action to show. But that's enough of me droning on and on about this series that is GT3 cars in absolute action and absolutely beautiful in every way, shape, and form. Let me bring in the other voice that's going to bring you through your Thursday night here on the East Coast in the U.S., unless you're British, such as you are, Howie. And then it's 3 o'clock in the morning for you. So good morning, I will say to you.
It is indeed the morning, and I am, ready to run myself some Petit Le Mans later. So I've got a bit of a wacky timed weekend, but kicking it off here at one of my favorite tracks in all of iRacing, really. I drive a lot in Formula cars myself. I haven't actually had a chance to take the GT3 grid out here, but that reprofiling of the banks, talk about the NASCAR guy dropping in on the track with all the banked curves, man. You wrote that for yourself.
Yeah, this is probably... Okay, so a little background for anyone who doesn't know. I started my commentary career in Formula One. I started out all the way back in the wonderful world of F1 2020. And then from there, I've built up through Formula, and then I went to GT, and then I went to iRacing, MX5 stuff, and NASCAR, well, because I'm American, why else would I go to NASCAR? Dirt track, all sorts of fun things. And I will tell you right now, my favorite thing to drive, commentate, anything is GT3 cars. One of my favorite tracks is Zandvoort. You're putting all of these great things together at once, and it's just going to produce some great racing. We've got mixed classes here. Even though it's GT3s, we've got Pro and Ams, we've got Porsches on the track, we've got Corvettes out there, we've got the Ford Mustang out and about. I mean, come on, what is there not to love?
It's very interesting to see only 4 car manufacturers actually make it into this race. We have a lot of Porsches, we have quite a few of the McLarens, and then more Fords than I expect usually. I think recent changes in iRacing have really made the Ford Mustang a much more popular competitor. I'm a Corvette driver most of the time, and I have very strong feelings on the cars that I'll probably get to complain about later. It's nice to be on an early race in the season so you can talk about this sort of thing while the championship still has time to sort of evolve. It's an interesting field, and I do quite like races with the Pro-Am split. It does give you 2 nice stories to follow on board with, even though we have the same car.
And if you're wondering how the Pro-Am split is divided, well, I will tell you right now, it is by iRating. To no one's surprise here, we'll pull up the iRatings on the board, and as you can see, anyone below that 2,000 mark is going to be down in the Am class. Anyone above the 2,000 mark, they're in your Pro class. So that is what you want to look for when you're looking to figure out who is who in terms of the classes. And you might see some variances to that, and that's at the discrepancy of the admin. I will tell you what's not at the discrepancy of admin: weather. And as you can see, as everyone comes to the final corner, you're seeing a little bit of spray. I've been in this session since practice started, and I will tell you right now, at about 15 till the hour, there was plenty of rain pouring down. We had a lot of people on the wet tires. Everyone's transitioned back to dry. We're on a dry track, and it seems like most of the water is away.
I think, though, we might be getting a little bit more rain later, if I'm not wrong. So, let alone just having a little bit of wetness to begin the session, we're going to have mixed conditions today on the road that are going to possibly lead to some interesting driver split and some tricky little incidents, I wonder. This track is fairly easy to get around, apart from that middle sector that always catches me, where it just flattens out. But, banking becomes a whole different game in the wet, and Asgard doesn't even let you do it. So let's just bring GT3s out there anyway. Why not?
Yeah, you can see the spray right here, especially off of that number 77 that we're following of Mikulagic. And going through, Kevin Fanning is going through right now and putting in a very good middle sector. Coming out of the final sector, Kevin Fanning currently setting P7 in that Corvette. Will come across. Provisional pole. 8 minutes to go, though. We're only halfway through this qualifying session. Drivers continue to speed up. Michael Gonzalez there in the McLaren found some time in the first sector, is slow in the middle. Then you have Justin Nazier, who will go up into second place and go through. Now we have Michael Gonzalez, who will continue across the line, is slow through the second and third sector, loses out time, does not move ahead. So drivers still finding time as this goes through. And I wasn't sure how they would qualify with this open qualifying. We would see people doing, out push in, or how the drivers would handle it. But it seems like with that mixed track conditions, it's really just set everyone here to just running constant laps here, Howie. It seems like nobody's really going for just one and done.
Yeah, I think these times are going to drop off a cliff as we keep going on. While you were talking, the slowest pro time was a 1:37. Now that's a 1:36. Fastest was a 1:34. Now it's a 1:33. You can still see a tiny bit of spray in some of the corners coming off the rear of the cars. There's more cars keep running for the next 6 minutes. That's going to keep driving down, keep getting drier, and then we're just going to see some absolutely blistering laps. This is one of those sessions where you really need to be on the track for as long as possible.
Cody Cosgrove going across there into second place in the Porsche, putting in a 1:34.0. I do see more sector times going around, though. You've got Michael Gonzalez, who has been purple in the middle sector, or in the first sector yet again, is green in the middle sector. So you are seeing people improve, and this field is not spread out by a lot. When you look at the gap there, it is about 3.5 seconds from P1 to P18, but the big thing I want to draw your attention to is the top 10 are separated by 1.2 seconds. That's a pretty pretty tight gap for a GT3 field, and now we come through Gonzalez, 7/100ths of a second. Flores is going to come across with a 1:33.6, so continuing to see those times improve. Romain Rateau is coming through right now in the Porsche, and we'll see what Romain here can do, coming across with a little bit of slipstream from a Mustang as well. That always helps.
I've noticed that the slipstream doesn't completely make or break your race in GT3s. I've heard that they're some of the least drafty cars you get around here, but it will help with things like fuel saving in the long run of the race. These cars also have some of the hardest tyre compounds in all of iRacing, so there's almost nothing you lose from just staying out there for the entire length of this session. Open qualifying is wild in iRacing. We don't see enough of it, and it lets you see sessions really evolve over time. That gap to P1, 0.013. You think Reynolds will make another shot at it?
I could see it, and here's the thing. I think anybody in the top 10 could have a shot at it too if they get the right lap going together here. We have cars continuing across. 5 minutes left to go in our qualifying session here, Howie. And what that means is this is the point where everyone's really going to be putting their foot down. They're going to be looking for the pace, and that gap is going to continue to close. Top 10 separated by just by like a whisker, just over a second.
Well, Sohn's got a little bit of time to make it ahead of an AM driver on the road. But I feel like you can see this sort of gap. You have all those drivers going to 0.5, and then just a couple at the very bottom of that pro class in the 1 second mark. I think their times are only like that because they didn't catch the best conditions. Few of them are running out laps right now, trying to get back onto the grid. We could see everybody in less than a second at this rate in a class that close and competitive.
We absolutely could. We're going to ride on board right here for a second with Hunter, who you can see Dylan Hunter here down in 16th place, but no slouch. Only 1.8 seconds off of our leader, Flores. This is one of your AM drivers to keep an eye on through the day and really pay attention to just how technical, tricky this track is. Of course, this hard left-hander where Daniel Ricciardo broke his hand and in the case broke his Formula One career going through. Now we're going to just continue and ebb and flow, and this track is built on the dunes beside a beach. If you don't know that, the sea is just off to your left as we stand now, and now it's hard on the brakes. Bring it around, coast it through. There we go. Now let's get back on the throttle. Let's keep this car moving, grooving down the gear, a hard right, hit the apex. Don't run it out too wide here. Keep it going. Again, down 2 gears we go. Mustang into 2nd gear for the right-hander. Wasn't expecting that. Now we're going to have the hairpin left. Bring it on around. Bring it around town. That corner almost never ends, and now you stomp on the throttle. And we're going to go underneath the bridge here. Continue on straight, and what do you get from here? You get a nice, probably trickiest section of the track here. Hit the curb there. Now dive it hard left. The banking makes it a little bit easier. Now run it wide right. Bring it all the way back to the left. And now just stand on the loud pedal. Bring it through. Watch it a little bit. You see where a lot of people have run off wide here to the left. And now just stamp the loud pedal. The banking here will let you just open her up. And there we go. That is a lap around Zandvoort.
You mentioned the sand dunes. As long as there's no sandworms, I think we'll be fine. Yeah, this track, it feels like very much like a driver's track, especially in some of the Formula Series where racing is hard no matter what they are like. But you find a lot of these really sweeping corners. They carry a lot of momentum into each other. It's really one of those tracks that's dependent upon about how free of your corner exits go, because they actually determine the super fast sections that make up half of this track. That exit out of turn 1 determines everything as you head up and down the hill, all the way back up the track. That slowing section in the middle where it flats out before we hit that chicane that you identified as the hardest part. It's often the hardest for me. It's very easy to sort of lose the car under you as it all just flattens out and you start driving it a little bit differently. But from then on, your exit of that chicane is everything when it comes to how you make this back section of the track straight onto the front stretch. Very, very dependent upon getting those perfect lines and exits. They'll just define your whole lap because of how much of it's flat out.
Well, and you'll see a lot of, interesting. I think the cool thing with the GT3s is we're going to see a lot of interesting passing opportunities that we don't traditionally see with open wheel formula cars. The GT3s, since the wheels are covered and it's not open wheel, because the wheels are not open, I think that's going to produce a big opportunity for some very, very aggressive driving and hard racing from these guys on this track that you don't traditionally see. You're going to see, I think, some unique passing zones here. Gonzalez with 60 seconds to go brings himself up into pole, 133.5. Matt Kingsbury down in 6th has just went purple sector 1 in the Porsche and is going to continue to run times. There are 2 Kingsburys. There's Matt Kingsbury and there's Ray Kingsbury, and they're both in Porsches, so I know that helps nobody. We will help you differentiate who is who as this session goes. You can see, though, they're both also pros, which is interesting to see, and we'll help you differentiate which is which. But that number 21 is Matt Kingsbury, who went purple first sector, green middle sector. Ray Kingsbury behind went green first sector, yellow in the middle sector. 30 seconds to go to get your times in and make it stick here. You can see the top 11 separated by 1.1 seconds. The whole field only by 2.7. That's a very, very close time to see. You see a couple of people just now coming out and around and about trying to get things in. We'll have just a few seconds left to go, 10 seconds on the board here. What does Matt Kingsbury have to produce to the table? Well, I'll tell you right now, Matt Kingsbury crosses the line. It's a purple third sector, and it is good enough for pole position. 133.329 yanks it away from Michael Gonzalez.
I mean, Matt's got to watch out because I think Ray is one of the league owners behind the scenes. It is interesting. I'm not quite sure if there's any relation. Maybe you know, but if you don't, then I'll have to find out in my own time.
Probably, but I'm not going to say that for sure because I don't want to say one way or the other and be wrong and get in trouble here on my first time out. But we're getting ready to grid up, so let's go ahead and run you through the starting order really quick. And as we get that starting order up, it is going to be the wonderful... well, there we go. Let me hit that. There we go. So it's Matt Kingsbury to Michael Gonzalez. From there, Kevin Fanning, Ray Kingsbury, Anthony Flores, Blake Reynolds, Romain Rateau, Cody Cosgrove, Justin Nasir, and Paul Mikulajic. From there, it's Marwan Mofta, Tim Brokaw in the top 12. From there, let's finish out this grid. And we have 18 cars today. From there, it's Brian Sohn, Rob Edgel, it's Carson Quint, it's Dylan Hunter, it's John Ebersol, and in 18th place is Josh Ondo. And we get the pleasure of a GT3 pace lap here today. Why not? I love a GT3 pace lap. It's something, again, I don't think we see enough.
I want to check out how many drivers aggressively weave on the grid when that doesn't quite make the impact you're looking for. Looking at the cars on the front, Porsches are unbearably popular in the GT3s, in my opinion. I've driven them all. I have the entire IMSA field for some reason. And so I totally understand everything that draws people to it. It's very, very drivable. It's very, very predictable. It's very fast around these tracks that require a lot of corners, and this is a very corner-heavy track. I feel like I see too many of them in my life. I just feel like, though, I rock up and it's like, it's Porsche again. Oh, daring today, aren't we? Porsche again. The McLaren, I feel like in the current state of iRacing, it is a little bit overpowered since it launched. It's got unbelievable aero. It can just attack tracks hard. This league does have their own balance of performance, though, that they have the right to add in on top of the existing iRacing BOP, which they may use if anyone proceeds to dominate. I'm surprised by the number of Corvettes, really. I love that car. It's my favorite one. I've never known it to be highly competitive, but it's very, I call it tastefully loose. If you understand a car that gets a little bit loose, but it's fast along the way and doesn't do unpredictable stuff, the Corvette feels like an absolute dream. I love that thing, and it's amazing to see multiple of them out on that row, and only 4 cars in the GT3 field across both classes.
Yeah, it's very surprising to see, again, so few representation. And if you wonder what access of cars they have here in this league, I will read you the list. It's the Audi, it's the BMW, it's the Corvette, the Ferrari 296, the Mustang, the Huracan, the McLaren MP4, the Mercedes, the Porsche, and any other GT3 spec car that has been introduced that may not be in that list I just read. And I can't think of all the GT3 cars in iRacing off the top of my head right now. But with that being said, it really does kind of shock me that we see what we see. But then again, people like what they like. And in the terms of the Porsche, it's kind of the traditional GT3 car, I like to think of it. It's what people are used to. It's what people know. And it's what a lot of people have the most seat time in. So it's what they will run and stick with.
I mean, yeah, hop into any GT3 lobby, and it used to be a sea of Ferraris because you saw everybody just dropping out of that D-Class series straight in. But you get past the sea of dangerous Ferraris, and it's Porsches the whole way down. People do love that car, and having studied all of them, I totally get why. Totally get why. In fact, I recently ran a 3-hour solo endurance just to get some safety rating, quite frankly, at Barcelona. And I don't run the Porsche often, and I was like, 3 hours, I want to keep it on the road. I want a car that will do what I expect it to. Porsche's safe. Porsche just is that nice, safe option that I can hop in, and it will at least treat me okay. But it's also good to see that no car manufacturer is completely dominated. It's almost completely even across the three. We also see a lot of love for the Mustang. Really drivable car now since it's been changed. Looks like we are heading. Are we heading into the last corner, or are we just a few before? Am I about to cut off your race start?
No, you are fine here. We are coming through. Let's pull the track map because that will actually help a little bit. So we're coming through. We've still got a little bit of time. You can see some people getting real feisty with the weaving. Corvette there in 5th place of Reynolds. Blake Reynolds really trying to warm those tires up here as the pace car pulls away that iRacing Porsche safety car. Again, you can tell I've been commentating NASCAR recently. I call it a pace car. It's a safety car here. Where we're at, we're in Netherlands. We're at Zandvoort. Let's get the proper terminology underway here as they come around. They're coming towards the final corner. Place your bets. Who's going to win?
This is still a very, very fresh league. It's still very, very fresh drivers. We've not really seen it play out. Cop out. I feel like it could be anybody's game, quite frankly. I'm going to have to let this develop a little bit. Sorry for the cop out. We'll talk about it in the feature.
I respect it because I wouldn't have given an answer myself. So glad to see that you have done the same thing I would have done, Howie. But the thing we can't avoid is the race start here. As that Porsche safety car pulls off, we have the leader here of Matt Kingsbury and Michael Gonzalez in the front row, the Porsche, the McLaren, and then it's Porsche Corvette. Who's going to come out ahead at the end of this 15-minute heat? Well, only one way to find out. That's for Barney to throw the green flag and us to get underway. And very quickly, you see Kingsbury move to defend the high line, does very well to do so. Do we all make it through turn 1 becomes the next concern, and it looks like at the moment, everybody's through turn 1 nice and pretty. No concerns at the moment. You've got Reynolds there who is trying to make a run against Fanning, and Fanning now defending the inside. There we go. You see very, very high through the Daniel Ricciardo corners. I like to call it a little bit of wiggle there from the Porsche of Flores, but in that moment, we're still side by side for them. Further up front, Matt Kingsbury has gotten away well. Oh, there's a big run, and there's a big slide from the 911.
He hopped right over the curb, that Corvette, and hit the air, unsettled, landing on the uneven ground. That's another Porsche that's run wide. We're looking at Kevin Fanning went off. Anthony Flores dropping further back. Saw a tiny bit of contact. You don't see it too often on this track, but these cars can do a little bit of side-by-side as they all try scramble for that top line. I believe it's called the Tarzan corner. I could have just made that one up. Gonzalez behind Kingsbury here is within such a close attacking range already. He's looking for an opportunity to pounce on a good corner exit, I think. Getting a nice result here does secure you some good points in the championship.
That it does, and I'm not going to correct you on corner names because I'll be honest, while I know Zandvoort and I enjoy Zandvoort, the corner names escape me, so I'm not going to attempt to correct you on anything as we go through, but you see that gap opening up very quickly here, and we are running down the main straight. Lap 1 down, 13 minutes 20 seconds to go. It's nice and sunny and pretty, but again, we know rain is looming. We know rain will be on the way somewhere. Cosgrove making a move in the background, and that's because Rateau has spun in the background and has gone off. We'll take a look at how that happened here in just a moment, as it looks like John Ebersole was involved in that as well. Let's get a quick replay of what happened here.
Is this little contact going side by side, or is it overcooking it? It looks like contact from this angle. It looks a little bit like two drivers were sort of fighting for that inside line. There's some quite strict rules on driver contact in this league, and I think stewards will be watching. It's half slide, it's half contact. Looks like a bit of a racing deal to me from this angle, but got to be frustrating in a sprint race to be sent back this far. Thankfully, it's not the end of your day.
Yeah, that's going to be... I do think that will be looked at later, though, but we'll see what the situation of that is. Mafta here, I do want to point out the AM leader of Mafta currently in the mix in 8th place. And what does that mean for Mafta? Well, if we were to throw the checkered flag right now and move on to our feature, Mafta would be in pole position for the feature race. Again, remember, the top 8 from this sprint race invert their positions, and they get the 8th place will be first, vice versa, and that will be a very interesting moment to watch. Here we go out of the final corner. Gonzalez and Kingsbury gap 2 tenths here, and it seems like that McLaren there of Gonzalez, while it can keep up with Kingsbury, Kingsbury just seems to have a little bit more, and the Porsche there of the other Kingsbury, Ray Kingsbury, seems to have a little bit more into turn 1. That McLaren is doing very well on corner exit, but is not nailing that corner entry.
Well, it only takes one move in 15 minutes to make a change. I think these cars are a little bit vulnerable to dirty air sometimes, running off the back of each other. They're certainly not very drafty. So you have to be patient and bide your time and wait for mistakes on this track. These cars there aren't too many opportunities to send ridiculous dive bombs. Also, I'll correct the record. Tarzan's that turn 1. It's Hugenholtz that is that very famous sweeper. I'm not testing you later, but I'm not about to repeat that name 50 times and get it wrong on stream and get an earful at the end of the day, where you want to try and come out of the corner before and run that high line to carry as much momentum as possible as you head up the rest of that first sector.
I'm glad you have looked that up because, and I'm glad you're not testing me because, again, I won't remember that later. That's one of those things. There's few tracks that I'm very good at corner names, and I will tell you right now, Zandvoort is not one that I will ever claim to be good at the corner name knowledge in my life because, well, it's one of those things that some people got it, some people don't. Call it the old school versus new school mentality. But I tell you what's not old school versus new school, very hard racing. And that is what we're seeing right now. I'm looking back at Ray Kingsbury, who's starting to get under a little bit of pressure by Blake Reynolds as they go through around into turn 1. Justin Nassier is into the pit lane. Again, remember, these guys have one fast repair that they can use through this race. Hopefully we're not in a case of using fast repairs already because we're only 5 minutes in.
Thankfully, it's a short one, though. Thankfully, I mean, you do sort of gill up your whole race by stopping at this stage. It's just sort of, this race is over for you, as holding that low line in the McLaren, you see just how it kills your corner exit, but if you're forced down there by someone up ahead, you definitely do just have to sort of accept it. So getting past there by Flores. Looking at the points for this race, you get 30 for winning the sprint and 60 for winning the feature. You get double on that second half of the round. So there are some great points in the championship to be made up here, even if it's not the end of your day. As we're up in the back, just hoping that something kicks off that is going to encourage now some action as Rato there tries to make his nose up the inside and just gets a little bit unsteadied by the McLaren ahead.
Oh, and that is going to be one of the Mustangs. That's the 111 there of Brokaw that is off. Let's see if we can find out what happened to Tim Brokaw there, because that was a very unique moment. Is that just a... Oh, don't tell me this is just a single car spin. A Mustang doing Mustang things, I fear. Yes, Mustang doing Mustang things. And then just stuck right on the racing law. Oh, and there's the front end. You see it dent in. And just add one for company. Mustang to Mustang violence. Just hold the brakes.
I mean, it's easy to panic in those situations. You sort of reversing is the unsafe thing, but also you're in the worst possible part of the track. I find those to be the hardest corners on the track. I find that they sort of look deceptively simple, and the car is so likely to unsteady itself. No matter what you do, you try and attack them with any of the power if you attack this track, and suddenly the tyres just go, sorry, mate, got none of that for you. I actually lost my Formula license on that corner. Before, like, it's brutal, and it's a super hard portion of the track as Hunter does make a pit stop. That one probably is for the fast repair. Some of these cars can be a little bit damage vulnerable with 8 minutes to go.
Yeah, and it doesn't surprise me to see pulling that fast repair through. Checking out Ray Kingsbury here in 4th place, who is continuing to chase down Gonzalez, getting that gap within half a second. You've got a good battle right here happening. This is for that P8 position, P7, P8 position that we see. This is Sohn, Mikalajic, Flores that are really battling things out right here and having a moment. Having a moment in the background is Rob Edgell. We'll look here in a second and see what happened to Rob, because Rob has now dropped down pretty significant into 14th place there. Or you want to look at it this way, 4th place in the AMs, because Marwan Mafta has absolutely taken off and is in 6th place at the moment, really racking up the points here as they go. 7 minutes left to go, and I would say probably about we should hit lap 10 by the end of this race. I think, if I'm doing my math correct, now somebody else can correct me on that. Look at the draft right now between Sohn and Fanning. Fanning right there looking very, very feisty, was right on the rear end. You can see Rateau into the pits. And here we go, turn 1 dive, hard on the brakes. Not close enough to make it stick.
That, the infamous Tarzan corner, Thor being the prime overtaking spot on the track. If you can muscle out ahead there, you have the whole first sector to yourself. But it's hard because, as I've said, you want the high line on this corner, and that sort of encourages you to potentially take suboptimal lines, because there's a bit of a complex that comes up, and the one thing you don't want to be held on is the bad part of the track, because if you're forced on the inside of someone around there, it's not happening, as that car got itself a little bit loose. I said tasteful before, but that's not what I like my car doing to me ever.
Not at all. That's not what you want to see. And, I mean, at least you get back on the track, you get going, and things kind of settle down. Up in the front, everyone's still kind of stationary here with the top 5. They haven't really moved around a lot. Cody Cosgrove in 5th place sitting there. Blake Reynolds in 3rd place sitting, but Kingsbury, Gonzalez, Kingsbury 4th, 2nd, and 1st, respectively. You see guys kind of just, I think they're settling in here at the moment, really just sort of enjoying the time as they go through. And as we continue forward in 5.5 minutes to go, and again, ladies and gentlemen, just as a reminder, they end this is just our heat race, and then we invert the top 5 or top 8, and we go for a 45-minute feature race. A nice hard case of action where strategy will come into play and plenty of other things will come through. Right now, I think the strategy between Gonzalez and Kingsbury is Kingsbury needs to really figure out how wide a Porsche is, and if it can be wider than a McLaren and wider than a racing surface, because Gonzalez is closing in very quickly.
I think with the length of time left in this race and the points you have on the table from sitting where you are, you're going to be looking for mistakes to be made by the car ahead if they do something silly, especially around these corners in this nasty second sector. I mean, just look at how much you have to slow up the car and then suddenly switch it back. Yeah, this is exactly where I lost my license, as I mentioned, with the crane on the right-hand side. Hope it doesn't pick you up off the track. Very easy to just sort of lose the car from under you unexpectedly, especially in some of these mid-engine cars. Yeah, if the car in front of you makes a mistake, you're going to want to take it, but you also don't want to throw away what could be a couple points short of 30 when the real event is coming up. That's going to be the real place where we play games.
It's very, very much a case of risk reward. And again, remember, weather could come into play as well. That weather model iRacing has put in, I absolutely adore it. And we could see it wreak havoc on this race today as we go through. While we were riding on board there with Michael Gonzalez, Mofta lost a place, dropped down into 7th. In 6th place here is going to be Flores now, and Mofta's under pressure from Mikolajic and might actually drop down into 8th place as we see Paul Mikolajic there looking. See the, I like that helmet he's got there. It's very, very appropriate for the Halloween season as we go through. And I think that's a skeleton race suit. That's, you know what? That's a very, very nice thing to see there. Let's, we'll see if we can get a better visual of that a little bit later in this race. Actually, we'll jump right here, right now. Let's see if we can see. Yeah. How would you feel, Howie, if you're racing and that's what you're seeing in your rearview mirror?
I feel like the Grim Reaper has come to collect me off the side of the track right now. I'm an am where I shouldn't belong. I'm just sort of sitting in this field, and the pros are bringing out the otherworldly creations. A personal request to you is next time, if you're ever watching me on the track, sometimes I do show up on the JP Broadcasting YouTube channel on the track. Take a look at my helmet if you want to be a little bit freaked out. Love the cool designs. Some people just like to disregard that, but that's such a cool looking design. And well, on the topic of the drivers we're looking at here, Marwan Mofta's had an incredible run. He's exactly where he wants to be, where the drivers around him kind of are attacking because they kind of do want position, but it's not of too much consequence, and you don't need to defend for your absolute life because, you know, they're not for points. You've got a massive buffer between you and the car behind, 8 seconds plus down the road. You've had the best sprint race of your life, but now you are going to have to start from 8th position, I believe. Or do they invert the whole top? If they invert the whole top 8, he starts from pole, and this is going to be fascinating. If they invert per class, he is at the back of the class. I think it is actually the whole race top 8, and in that case,
It is.
could we see an Am win?
We could. It'll be a big ask. It will be a big ask to see Mofta win through. Flores getting past Kingsbury just up ahead as Kingsbury has had a bit of a moment there. Ray Kingsbury, that is. What has happened to Ray Kingsbury is he's now dropped back into 8th place, trying to hold on to more positions. Might drop into 9th place. The McLaren looking for a pass here, looking through, and no, Kingsbury able to hold on. But what happened to Ray Kingsbury to send him on his way? Well, let's take a look, and I have a feeling this is a single car drop-off here for Ray Kingsbury. He's hard up. He's in the high line. And the Porsche does Porsche things, and the rear end just says, no, we're not doing that today.
I found that the traction control on these cars obviously does a lot of work for me, but when you really need it, when you really need, like you're losing the car and you have to save yourself, suddenly it's your worst enemy on the road because, you know, I'm used to putting both feet down and just sort of rescuing the car. A lot of these non-TC cars, there are ways on saving it, and then you run into the TC and it's basically destined to send you into the wall. It's like a predetermined guarantee. It's very hard to save a GT3 car, and sometimes it's very hard to explain why they lost it because there's so many systems and gizmos that mean that you're not truly connected. But also these cars without traction control would be a nightmare, so I should be careful what I ask for, quite frankly.
Remember, April Fools can exist, and iRacing likes to play April Fools here. Side by side through turn 1 we go, and it is still Kingsbury holding on against Sohn, but Sohn on the inside line trying to hold on there and not able to. This is the battle for that all-important P8 position where we will invert the top. Oh, there's the coming together, and oh, that is going to be a spin from Sohn. Kevin Fanning holds on to it, but just barely, and that is going to give some breathing to Mofta and Kingsbury, who will go through. But up front, half a second, the gap, 0.3 of a second, the gap between Kingsbury and Gonzalez on the final chance they have to swap positions here for the lead. And I tell you what, Gonzalez is going to go for a tear here.
Stewards had a lot to visit today, I think. Just off this sprint race alone, we've seen a little bit of contact, a few incidents that turn people around. I don't like playing judge, jury, and executioner from the booth, but I just know that there's going to be, you know, they often like to sit in a voice chat together and sort of go over things as they happen, and there's going to be a lot to recount, and that's just the sprint race. You do see a little bit more desperation in these races, but the feature is going to be the real show as Kingsbury crosses the line in P1. Gonzalez not quite getting the run that looked for coming up to the line. Reynolds in P3. That's a decent chunk of points on the board already, and we're not even halfway through the day.
Absolutely. Plenty of racing left to go here. Mofta will bring it across the line in 7th place to be your AM winner by a good chunk of time. 15 seconds, the gap back between Mofta and 2nd place AM driver Rob Edgel. And if you wonder how far back Rob is, well, here's your answer just now coming out of the final corner. That is how considerable the gap is as Nasir crosses. There's Edgel, and then Josh Ondo will be the next driver across the line. You can see a little bit of a battle there between Romain Rateau and Tim Bakal as they cross the line. Brokaw, there we go. And then we will just wait on Dylan Hunter in the Mustang. Mustang's not having a good fare here, honestly, and it's kind of sad to see as Ebersol and Sohn jump to the pits. Heat 1 is now officially in the books, and we'll look at the results here in just a moment.
Give them time to warm up. Give these Mustangs time to warm up. That car does have its strengths after a lot of the changes it's seen in iRacing, and with, I think, a good Mustang driver can make that car work for them.
They probably can. It's going to be an uphill battle for the Mustangs, which is not usually the thing they're the big fan of. We'll see how they go through our feature races. Matt Kingsbury is able to start on pole, finish on pole here with Michael Gonzalez in 2nd place, Blake Reynolds in 3rd, Cody Crossgrove moving his way up into 4th place, Anthony Flores in P5, Paul Mikolajic in P6, Marwan Mofta in P7, Ray Kingsbury rounds out 8th place. From there, it was Kevin Fanning in 9th, Justin Nasir in 10th, Rob Edgell in 11th, Josh Ondo in P12, Romain Rateau in P13, Tim Brokaw in P14, Karsten Quint in P15, Dylan Hunter in 16th, and then Brian Sohn and John Ebersole rounding out our 18 drivers that took on that heat race. Now, all about the feature, and it's all about first the cool down session, as I call it. Some people call it the warm-up session. I call it the cool down session. Why do I call it the cool down session, ladies and gentlemen? Well, because you just ran a 15-minute heat, and do you really need to warm up after 15 minutes of hard racing for 45 minutes of hard racing? I think the answer to that is no. Howie, what are your thoughts on a nice little cool down session?
Sometimes I like to sit in my seat. Sometimes I like to get some practice. I don't do too many of these iRacing heat races, and I believe there are technical reasons why they sort of grant the warm-up to drivers between the sessions, but it's nice to see somebody get a little bit of road practice, as we can see a little bit of spray come off the rear. Can you get, for me, the local time on the track? Because I have the full forecast, and I believe rain is due fairly soon.
It is currently 14:32 local time on the track. As we look, wind is pretty significant. We didn't talk about weather conditions too much other than just what we were expecting, but 19-mile-an-hour wind. It's pretty significant, but you also have to remember we're right beside the ocean here. So the wind does play a pretty big part here in how this track handles. Believe it or not, even in GT3 cars, it makes a difference. You can see the trees swaying just a little bit there in the background, but it does, again, make a bit of a difference here. But you can see, yeah, we're looking for a good amount of weather here today. We'll see what happens. Dylan Hunter is who we're spectating, by the way, one of our Mustangs that had a Mustang day, and he is the only driver out on track at the moment, out on dry tires, of course, and it looks like is just wanted a little bit of screen time, I'll say.
Well, that is very interesting knowing that local time, because right now is about when the rain is predicted to start dropping on the track. Now, this series doesn't come with a mandatory pit stop. Usually these cars have just about enough fuel for that stint and they can make it to the end. But if we start a little bit dry, drivers try out the dry tires, and then it becomes wet enough to start thinking about the rain, we're going to have some real questions about whether drivers stop and when they stop. And there's going to be this big crossover point where those who don't go for it are just going to be caught absolutely sleeping on the road. That's going to be a very interesting dynamic. It was believed that the rain would start dropping around 2 p.m. local and not give up until 3:45 p.m. We don't see too much on the track, though, still. Forecast to forecast. Weathermen can be wrong even in the minutes up to these sorts of moments, but those clouds, they do look nasty.
I mean, just remember that in real life, a lot of times they don't know what's happening, and they literally just stick their hand out of the pit box. They say, hey, is it raining? No? Okay. Is it raining on my hand? Yes. Okay, it's raining on track. And they'll position, team members at certain corners to tell where rain is, what's happening, and position people, 5 miles outside of the track to radio in and say, hey, there's rain coming. Even in real life, the teams have no idea, and iRacing has done a very good job of modeling that in with their weather model of that little bit of uncertainty coming in, but it gives us a good idea of what to go off of. Blake Reynolds has now come out of the pits as well, not officially on track, but actually, as I say that, Blake Reynolds is officially out on track. A few more drivers spawning into the pit lane. I think they're just kind of looking at options here, what they can do. But we've got 15 seconds left in warm up before we go into this feature race. And again, it'll be one pace lap, 45 minutes of action, and the top 8 from our heat race are inverted. I gotta ask, now since we've had the heat race, Howie, are you willing to guess a winner for the feature race?
I can definitely identify drivers that surprise me, and we'll work backwards from there, I think. The AM driver starting on pole for this race is going to be an incredible dynamic. He might not be faster than the whole pro field. He might maybe saying the wins on the tables is a little bit bold. But Mofta was gapping his field. He's now got a ridiculous gap between him and the cars behind. He's getting his race almost for free in this category, unless there's a problem. Ray Kingsbury starting on pole, but Matt was very, very fast. We might be seeing some Kingsbury on Kingsbury violence as this race evolves. I really like that battle between Gonzalez and Kingsbury, and I think in this feature race, people are going to make a few more moves and play the game a little bit more. You know what? I'm feeling maybe someone like Gonzalez makes an impressive move. Hey, at least I tried.
Will I remember that guess in 45 minutes? Potentially. We'll see how things go. But as we get all of our drivers out here onto the grid, we get ready to go. Just one more time, in case you forgot how the drivers start, let's run through our starting order as we get ready for our pace lap. And it is Ray Kingsbury up in pole position now from that top 8 inverted. It's Marwan Mafta in second place in the AM. So Pro and AM right there on that front row together. From there, it's Paul Mikolajczyk and Anthony Flores in P3 and P4. From there, we're looking at 5th place of Cody Cosgrove, 6th place of Blake Reynolds, 7th place Michael Gonzalez, 8th place Matt Kingsbury, 9th place of Kevin Fanning, 10th place of Justin Nazir, and you have to go all the way back to P11 to find our next AM driver of Rob Edgel. From there, it's Josh Ondo. It's going to be Roman Rateau. It's Tim Brokaw. It's Carson Quint. It's Dylan Hunter. It's Brian Sohn. And from there, John Ebersol. Your 18 drivers that will take on 45 minutes around Circuit Zandvoort. And I think I'm going to say Cody Cosgrove. If I have to guess a driver, I think I'm going to think Cody Cosgrove here might have a good chance in the Porsche. And that's just because Cody Cosgrove seemed to be really stable in that heat race. And we're just going to see what happens. I'm also picking a Porsche because it's a Porsche, as we have something weird happening there with Blake Reynolds.
iRacing race control is software engineering at its best. That was almost certainly a command to let a car past, and then you've driven enough ovals to know that we can't give race control unchecked powers. It just does horrific things to us. So looks like they've sorted that out on the front row. So we're going to have a nice clean start to this one.
That we have.
I swear I had a thought. Here's my thought. Very American field, of course. We're running in Eastern time, so, I'm the one that's doing crazy things to my schedule in order to be here. But huge shout out to Roman Rateau, the French driver, the sole European who has made it out onto the field in these hours to race with these drivers. Sometimes the Americans can be the best ones to race with, to be honest, as we are looking at John Ebersol starting from the pits. Probably missed the grid.
John Ebersol starting from pit lane, which is going to be a big ask, but again, there's 45 minutes of racing to go from the green flag, so shouldn't be the worst thing to deal with. Not saying it's going to be the best, but should be able to get away with it and hold on to it here as we continue our way around this pace lap. Feels way too long. This safety car needs to pick it up just a little bit here in pace. Of course, I sound like every NASCAR driver and every Formula One driver ever saying, hey, safety car, speed it up. And we all know that's not going to happen here. But I got to wonder, if you're Kingsbury or Mafta, what is your plan here on the race start? Especially considering this is your view behind you.
I mean, I think the flashing headlights of that McLaren would be enough to drive me insane. I hate it when people flash me during the race, although I get that we're bored during the pace lap. We want to press some buttons, so, I'm not going to have strong opinions on that one right now. I think don't do anything stupid. Let it settle in. You're not going to make it through this whole pack like a hero if you spin out on lap 1. But if you make incremental gains and wait for people to make errors, you can easily take advantage. Now I am talking into the race start, so I'll leave this one with you.
And we're going to come around the final corner here. This fun, hard-banked right-hander. The banking on this is ridiculous. I'm glad we're on board. Well, we were for just a moment. Let's get back on board here as you see just how crazy this banking is. There we go. That's what I wanted. And now they're going to be coming out of the final corner here. Let's jump to the blimp cam here. Bring this race start to you. It is going to be Kingsbury on the inside who will get the lead off as they cross the line. That's inside row. Backing up just a little bit. Here we go. We're through, and now we have the green flag. Now we get underway. And there we go with Kingsbury getting a big jump. Mikolajek coming through in third, having to defend from Anthony Flores in fourth. Hard breaking down into turn one. Good defense there from Mafta. And now they're side by side, the 7 and the 77, Porsche and McLaren, respectively, as Anthony Flores will make it around the outside into the inside. Everybody's made it through turn one, which I'm very happy to see. Bit of battling here in the background from the Mustangs, but other than that, turn one, very clean. Turn two, getting through very clean. And up in the front, as we watch the back, it is going to be Flores ahead of Mikolajek, and they will continue their way along.
Mofta's going to be a huge wild card on this race. No matter what, happens to him running at this stage, it's going to be very, very hard to unseat him without a mistake. But he's sort of this driver that's in the way, not quite within your race, but he's on your lap. He's in your car class, so you kind of have to battle him and earn it anyway. Any time he spends backing up this pack is time he spends ahead of his AM rivals. But as I talk about the mistake, there's the spin. That Corvette can do that under pressure at times, and all of that work has been sent to nothing. He's at the back. He's going to come out ahead of Urbisol, who started out from the pits, but from a dream to a nightmare at the start of this race.
The words are actually taken for me. I don't know what to say to that. That is...
He lasted longer than I would. Lasted longer than I would on the front of that pack, I think. That Corvette can sort of get it. It doesn't snap oversteer like the other mid-engine cars. It sort of just like loosens itself gradually if you do something it doesn't quite like. And I mean, he'll be happy about those sprint points, but that's got to be soul-crushing. But if anyone's the fastest AM on this field, it's him. Very interested to see how many positions he'll make up. It's a long race ahead, and we do start it in the dry.
We are in the dry. We'll keep our eyes on the weather conditions. I'll keep my eyes on where Mafta is as this race goes on. Drivers will continue to kind of speed up and go through. First lap down. Plenty more to go, so we'll see how things manage for them. Back in the back, Tim Brokaw and Josh Ondo swapping positions here. That Matco Tools Mustang continuing to move places forward. There is Ondo being a little slow, and Brian Sohn having to go a little bit defensive, trying to look for a pass. Up front, Anthony Flores and Ray Kingsbury going side by side, looking for some sort of a move. Anthony Flores up 2 positions on the day here, past Paul Mikolajek, and now trying to get past Kingsbury here as they continue along, putting a lot of pressure on the fellow Porsche driver.
It's a Porsche, McLaren, Corvette front row of this race. These Porsches are the sort of car you'd expect to be good around here. It's why they're popular. They're consistent and adaptable to a lot of tracks. There's very few things they're truly weak at. And these corners, they can tackle very well. But how are you pronouncing the driver in P3? I'd like to be on the same page as you at the very least, because he's looking to be a real threat, I think.
Yeah, our P3 driver here is Paul Mikolajek. And you'll be surprised that I know how to pronounce that, but that's because the F1 league that I commentated for a long time was Polish. So knowing the pronunciation of that word comes a bit more naturally than you would think, because it's very Eastern Europe, it's very Eastern European in its setup, very Polish in its setup. So it's Mikolajek.
I like the sound of that. I do like the sound of that. But I can work with that. Very nice indeed. Look at these drivers taking these curbs as that looks like it's Fanning sent back. Another case of the mysterious Corvette oversteer. Is it with us in the room right now? Is the Corvette's tendency to slide and get... Yeah, it is. It likes to sometimes troll you a little bit, and that was supreme trolling from the Corvette. Seeing a lot of these guys losing out, it's one of the weaknesses of this car, as much as I love to drive it, is that it can just be a little bit unsteady, as back in his lead pack, Reynolds is looking so tasty. He wants to bring justice to these Corvettes, and he's going to try and make a bold move around the outside. He carries more speed, leaving the McLaren to Constantina a little bit behind. Gonzalez takes advantage on the inside line to clean up for P4. Mikolajek, I'm getting it wrong. It's going to take me a little bit of time. Is on the nose, though. We could see a brave move into Tarzan. Not going to happen. Lots of shaking and moving as these Porsches get away.
Yeah, and the Porsches are going to get away for now, but one of the unique handling characteristics of the Porsche is as the fuel burns off, the car handling changes. If that's something that you're not used to, well, let me tell you, you've not driven a Porsche in an endurance race. These cars, as you burn fuel off through a stint, the handling characteristics can change, the center of gravity of the car can change, and the Porsches can go from being the fastest car on track to an absolute handful. And if you've never felt that, let me tell you, it's a very scary feeling when you're 30 minutes into a stint and the car feels totally different than it did 2 minutes into the stint. But we'll see how Kingsbury and Flores handle that as they go through their race. But right now, they are just putting a lot of pressure on each other. That's a wide berth there from Ray Kingsbury. Anthony Flores now going to dive up the inside through the left-hander. Can he hold on to it? Well, he's got better traction than a Corvette, I'll tell you that. And he's able to go through straight along, and now Flores will have the run with Kingsbury. Side by side, they go into the hairpin. The inside line is Ray Kingsbury, and Flores is going to give a wide berth of space, but will keep the inside. Side by side, they stay. And oh, there's a tap from Kingsbury into the tire barrier. That's going to hurt him, and that lets Reynolds through. That might possibly let Gonzalez through, as Gonzalez will follow him through the high-speed chute and is going to be looking for some sort of a pass here down the main straight.
Flores hasn't gotten the complete escape that I would have thought he would have wanted to get now. There's Reynolds just on his tail, when really, we would have wanted to use this chance to see the squabbling behind and just get away from the pack. This top four is so ultra compressed. You can see behind the gap is opening up. There could just be wall-to-wall racing for as long as it takes for these drivers, as Gonzalez goes very high, keeps that exit speed. You see, you're tempted by the inside. I drive NASCAR as well, so I'm not going to give you any disrespect for that, but I'm just saying it's your instinct to run low in these corners, but not over here. You've got to run as high as possible in order to bring that momentum out into the rest of the track.
That you do, and it is something that is easier said than done, I feel, and it's something that I think drivers just have to remember as we go. Flores here up in the lead, Reynolds in second, Kingsbury there in third after his little wall tap, and he's got to watch out because he might be under pressure. Blake Reynolds here looking in a very good position to bring his way forward and continue his way along. Look at the trail of cars here, though. His top 9 are absolutely head to tail as they go through. Here we go. This is going to be a dive from Rateau on Nasir, and not able to hold on to it there. Follows him through the tidy little hairpin, and now they'll continue along. But look at that sea of cars as they go through. Anthony Flores will lead us along through the high-speed chute down into the front stretch, and for another lap, Anthony Flores has the lead. Blake Reynolds in second place, and Ray Kingsbury in third place. And if you're wondering where our other Kingsbury is, that was Matt Kingsbury, who is in fifth place, not too far off.
Has made up 3 positions from the start, obviously sent to the back after that sprint result. I'm taking a look at Mofta here now. There's a massive gap between these pros and these amps now. We've sort of seen the natural gap evolve and the skill difference between these drivers. Maybe I'll sign up if there's a am category for drivers as untalented as me. But Mofta's made up 2 positions. Lost a lot of distance on some of those drivers behind with the spin. But all he needs to do now is finish ahead of those other blue drivers. Those pros, it's glorious to beat them. It's glorious to stay ahead of them, but it's not really the game by itself. Mofta's made up good pace, and he's already on the road to potentially pass Ondo down the line as well. So he's going to make some points back, possibly try and lead this championship.
That they will. Anthony Flores to Reynolds here. This is a battle. And then Ray Kingsbury to Michael Gonzalez. That is another battle. And as they started, they then stop here. Anthony Flores holding on to the lead against Reynolds, and Ray Kingsbury against Michael Gonzalez holding on to things as they go. You bring up the point there that all that Mofta has to do is just finish ahead of the other blue drivers, and as soon as you say that, he gets all the way up into 13th place. I don't know what he did to get a good pass there. It looks like something happened with John Ebersol in the background. Let's see if we can see what happened with John Ebersol as he came through, and it looks like there was something that happened ahead of him, and everybody was checked up. Oh, what happened ahead of him here? And I think that actually started with Josh Ondo, who is coming through. Let's see what Josh Ondo did here.
It's always the American cars. It's the rear end 2 American cars back to back, getting their rear ends spun out. That's not a wonderful rejoin. I'm going to have to say that is not one of the rejoins of all time, and the stewards do look at unsafe rejoins and issue penalty points accordingly. Now, if Mofta wants to look at his race and actually what happened to him on the road, he can come out today feeling disappointed. God, I had overall P2 and now I don't. But if he wants to convert this now, mentally in his head, if nothing changes, to what does this mean for my championship? It's a P1 and a P2 right now. You know, it's like one of the best weekends you could have. You could just imagine you were overtaken on the road by the other car. So Mofta is by far the strongest AM driver so far on this field, but he's got traffic to make it through, traffic that's more experienced and traffic that isn't going to yield too easily for someone in the lower class. It might be a little bit of pride that gets lost in letting them through for their battles.
Yeah, I think the battle for Mofta is going to be a very strong uphill battle. I don't think it's one that's impossible, but I think it's going to be close here. We're only 10 minutes into this race, 34 minutes to go as we cross the line. Flores still in the lead here by half a second. Kingsbury 9/10 of a second back as Ray Kingsbury is running through. And the big issue right now for Ray Kingsbury is this driver of Gonzalez, who is just right on his rear bumper. Gonzalez taking a peek up the inside. Again, not close enough to make that pass, but Michael Gonzalez is really going to be looking for the feature and looking for a moment. And, well, we talked about weather earlier. Where's our weather? Well, we're at 91% humidity. We're cloudy, so it feels like rain is in the air. I feel like I can feel it coming in the air tonight. And we'll see if any rain affects our 33 minutes. But right now, it's nice, dry, and just hard racing from GT3s.
I mean, I'm also wondering if we have the curse of encounting the rain that doesn't quite come at this point, because the original forecast was for this to already have landed by this stage. Still, this 4-car train not really breaking up all too much. Gonzalez, you see, carries a bit more speed into these entries, but it doesn't matter if there's a car sitting in your way. At that point, you sort of have to back off and say, okay, mate, maybe next time. It's going to be held up, though, if he wants to make a chase further down the road like this. I find that the passing opportunities aren't really totally presenting themselves here, even in the GTs. You're having to be very patient, and you're having to really exploit others not quite making the right line, or do insane dive bombs, but those come with their own risks, and we haven't seen too many of those play out.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's really going to look for the risk of a dive bomb into turn one. However, I think if you're going to do it right now, Michael Gonzalez is going to be the one. Look at this, hard on the brakes he goes. And then you have behind Mikolajczak here, you had that number 23 over toe that looked for a pass. But Michael Gonzalez now officially up into that third place, holding on to the lead for holding on to third for the moment against against Ray Kingsbury. There we go. And is looking through Michael Gonzalez again in that third place now, and can really set his sights on the top two and trying to go for a win here. Kind of pulled that cork out of the bottle and got Kingsbury out of the way, and now it's Ray Kingsbury to Matt Kingsbury behind him, but he is going to be looking at 1.6 seconds ahead against Flores and Blake Reynolds.
The Kingsbury, I'll just say name sharers right now, and I'll try and investigate if there's anything more going on behind the scenes. Although they do drive on different teams with different liveries, as Reynolds does try to sneak it up the inside. I think he's going to have the better exit there. Flores looks a little bit compromised, but that inside line is very advantageous now, heading into this next very, very tight corner, and that's going to give it up. I don't think Reynolds is done yet, but if he doesn't clear by these next few corners, he's not going to have any run onto that start finish. He wants that P1. Sometimes it's just a statement of intent that spooks the driver ahead, just to say, like, hey, mate, I am going to come. I'm going to do it. Now, you're going to have to really look out, as running onto that start finish straight, the slipstream isn't really there, but maybe the American horses can just get him there. Not quite on this run. He's looking aggressive as he takes a little bit of a bump in the back.
Yeah,
he's getting impatient. He wants to move someone out of the way.
Well, and the thing is too, when you know you're the faster driver and you know you've got the pace, and I would argue right now, just watching, that Blake Reynolds is the driver with the pace here against Flores, just based on seeing that lap alone. It is frustrating when you're not the one getting the pass done. You do get a little frustrated. But I think the thing to remember is you have 30 minutes in this race to go. You've got the time to breathe and relax and just let it go. Make like Elsa and let it go. You know, the cold can't bother you anyway, and right now being in second place can't bother you. You've got to hold on for another 29 minutes. Because what you don't want to do is cause a big wreck and just throw your race completely away, ruin your entire run, and just relegate yourself all the way to the back of the field because you got a little impatient and decided to make, you know, what I like to call a bonehead move and try to get a pass done where you shouldn't have.
I'm in two minds when there's a race about pit strategy. I'm in the mind of like, yeah, you do have time, but also, you know, your race does last a finite amount of time. It does feel like it doesn't feel like it's only been 15 minutes. It feels like we've had a whole story of ups and downs already up to this point. There's still a lot to go, but you don't want to open yourself up, and if you're behind someone you might make mistakes. It could all get compromised. If you force yourself by and make that gap open up, it could be better off in the long run, but in order to pass you have to pass. I mean, what an insight here from the commentators. I think that line will go on my headstone.
Well, let's look at lap times here if you really want to compare, you know, and look at who's the faster driver. Last lap time, 134.6 Flores, 134.89 for Reynolds. Gonzalez, 134.4 through. So, I mean, right there, the fastest driver out of the three of these is indeed Michael Gonzalez, at least on that last lap. And something has happened to one of the Kingsberries, and that, I fear, is Cody Cosgrove actually around, along with both Kingsberries. Hold on now. We've had a big moment here. Ray Kingsbury has started something off. Let's get an overhead shot of what's happened to this Porsche. There's a little wiggle, so this is going to be Ray Kingsbury with Matt. Oh, and they come together, and then they're going to slide, and oh, they just
carnage. It's Kingsbury on Kingsbury family violence. We're going to need the therapist to sort this one out at the end of it all. There's going to be some hot tempers nonetheless on that pass. That was a tricky one. That was a very tricky pass, and I think Stewards will apportion the blame in some way. Again, I'm just coming out with the zingers right now. Stewards will apportion the blame in some way. It looks to me a little bit like Ray is sort of steering in and causing this absolute cascade behind. The car is well alongside at that point going into the corner. So that really has shaken up the order right now, and it's going to be a little bit of controversy and heat in the booth. You sort of get knocked down a bit, you start feeling bad, you start getting annoyed, you start mentally maybe making mistakes on the road. It happens to me. Race isn't over though.
It's not over at all. 26 minutes left to go, and you know, with that one, again, stewards are going to take a hard look at that one. I don't know who you would really call at fault. I'll tell you right now, Cosgrove was just an innocent bystander in the mix, was just trying to run through. You've got Flores and Reynolds here who will not let up on each other. Reynolds really, really fast. Gonzalez 0.8 of a second behind them here, trying to just keep in touch as they continue and move forward. Mofta, I do want to touch on Mofta here. MP14 for the moment has not really made any progress ahead from P14.
Well, Rob Edgell has done the Mofta from the sprint here. Created this massive barrier with multiple cars behind. Multiple cars that sort of like, there's not position in fighting Edgell. They'll try and get past if they can because there are more cars up the road, but you know, it's such a distance that if you're not being totally held up, you can just sort of run smoothly and focus on the guy behind that's trying to pass you. Edgell sort of now has this sort of free barrier that's just going to do work for him whether they want to or not. It's unpaid labor. They're being your wingmen. They don't want to be, but they're locked in with you. You're not locked in with them. Edgell has that gap, and Mofta is fast but now has to force his way past quite a few cars on a track where we're starting to see tensions flare as the halfway mark almost approaches.
That we are halfway mark coming up, and the question for me becomes, do drivers have enough fuel to make it to the end? Did everyone calculate correctly, and are they comfortable to get to the end? We saw this in Spa where we saw some people run out of fuel right at the end of the race last time out in round one. So hopefully everybody's learned from their mistakes and they can continue along here. We're on board with Edgel right now. He's got 1.1 seconds ahead to Kingsbury and is running through this group from Cosgrove back is really close, but Edgel, of course, now also has Sohn and Brokaw and Fanning behind for company, and of course, in the back of that group is Mafta. Mafta in second place, and Ams is going to be looking for some sort of a run, a move, something to go through, and is going to continue to push. Romain Rateau here we jump on board with as we look at Nasir ahead in the McLaren. This is going to be a McLaren versus a Porsche, and you can see here that Rateau is looking for some sort of a pass. And I've said Rateau and Rateau, and I'm pretty sure it is Rateau, so I will continue to say Rateau moving forward across the next 24 minutes.
Rateau's running sleepless, decided to show up at 2 a.m. for some good old Simcar racing in local time. Respected a lot. I do crazy things for leagues I love as well. So, but he looks like he's driving as if he just woke up and he's just ready to run. Like this is his full-time job. Good pace on the road and the possibility to make up more positions. He's made up 7 since the start of this race. Every position, it's 3 points on the board early on this season, where there aren't really storylines, there aren't really rivalries. You're just trying to rack up everything you can get early on so you can take advantage later.
Yeah, the Mika Esport driver here. The French driver, I wouldn't be racing at 2-3 o'clock in the morning personally, unless it's a 24-hour race. That I will consider doing, and will consider running. I don't know about you, Howie, but I've ran the 3-hour endurance races. I've ran 8-hour team endurance races. I haven't ran a 24-hour. I can't think of a reason to be up at 2-3 a.m. otherwise on sim racing. But some people have a big love, a big dedication, and, well, this just goes to prove it as we ride on board with Romain Rateau, continuing to push and try to chase down Nasir ahead in the McLaren. You can see very picky on the shifts, and you can hear that Porsche just running nice and smooth. You got the revs up on the dash and just moving along, continuing to push. Checking back with the front of our field now, Flores, Reynolds, Gonzalez. This is separated by 0.7 of a second for these three, and Flores doing a beautiful job of defending, I must say, to this point, because if you look off this left rear suspension, I mean, Reynolds and Gonzalez are right there.
I mean, I'm just going to have to follow up on time to say, when you catch me on the Xfinity track on this very channel, what time of day do you think it is for me then? Yes, I'm one of those crazies that will do anything for a good sim race or a good set of drivers. Flores is sort of where he wants to be right now. Well, really wants to be another 10 seconds down the road. But the next best place to be is watching these two cars scrap while you just run your race and run your line. Reynolds is in a sort of threatening position. Reynolds could go for it, but he's a little bit back from where he was earlier, and he's got attacking traffic to contend with that's sometimes closer. These situations are so high pressure, they're so difficult, but, you know, it's those who can keep their head clear for long enough that come out on top.
Yeah, and we'll see how it goes in the end. I do think there is plenty for these drivers to give and continue to push along, and I think in the end, Flores, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard regardless. It's going to be a great show if Flores can hold on to it. It's going to be a great show if Flores doesn't hold on to it, if we're honest with ourselves. And this is the camera I was looking for earlier. That's the gyro cam coming off of the final corner. I was looking for that camera earlier because I want to show just how wild this track gets here as we ride on board with Gonzalez. You can see Reynolds up ahead. Again, another lap of just sticking behind, and we've got 21 minutes to go. You got to wonder, how long is Reynolds actually going to stay behind here, and how long is Gonzalez going to kind of just hold this gap? You can see Gonzalez is really feathering the throttle and really kind of just sticking behind this Corvette, and this Porsche ahead isn't charging for the pass. I think this is just being very conservative with your race decision here as we go near the end.
I feel like if you're in Gonzalez's position, the number one thing you want to do is sit there and wait for the two drivers up ahead to get into their own trouble. Because if they, battle and tangle and really waste each other's time, then you can strike. You can't really force it on two, but you're still a contender for this race win. How are you going to do it? Well, if you're running this close consistently, this track's demanding patience from people. We're not actually seeing many passes on the road, and the ones we are seeing are set up and executed in advance. It's not really got those predefined passing zones. And so it's leading to a lot of touchy-feely driving, where you sort of know that these drivers are looking to get these positions, but they can't do anything stupid. It's tough.
I think what's really shocking me is we're seeing gaps of 2.5 tenths. And traditionally, you would see that gap of 2.5 tenths and think, oh, okay, this pass is coming. This is game over. It's all she wrote. And we're not seeing that at all. We're seeing gaps of 2 tenths, even a 1.5 tenths happen. And then moments like that where Reynolds bumps the back of Flores and just doesn't get the pass done. This is proving to be such a difficult track to pass on. And as I say that, Ray Kingsbury is going to try to send it the long way around the outside, go for the switchback, a little bump on the back end of Sear, a little bit of a good old bump and run a la carte NASCAR style, and is able to get his car up. And right as I cut away to that, here is side-by-side action. Reynolds, Flores going through side-by-side. It will be Flores who has the inside there in the Porsche. They go through, Reynolds holding on. Who's going to come out ahead? And there's a little bit of a wiggle for Flores. Flores still, though, with that inside line, and that will just... the time will run out, but no, it's still right there. Flores hard on the dive. Switchback coming in from Reynolds. They go through side by side. Yet again, they are not giving up. And you've got Gonzalez in the back, best seat in the house, who's just kind of looking and saying, you know what? If you two can just take each other out and go ahead and let me have the lead, that would be fantastic. But now Reynolds in that Corvette is going to put the Corvette up in front. Not yet, though, because the Porsche is going to try to fight back. Not able to fight back. And now Flores will be in second place in the Porsche. And there is the Corvette in the lead. The American Muscle Power, made just 2 hours from where I live in Bowling Green, Kentucky, manufactured, and is absolutely holding down its horsepower in the lead here. Corvette up on top.
Some amazing side-by-side battling. You just have to wait for your window to open, and then you make the driver in front just panic, and you send them tumbling down the order. That was just such a cleanly executed move. We've seen a little bit of sloppiness out on the field today, and that makes moves like that even more impressive on the road, because you see him and you think, good job, man. You absolutely earned it. Flores possibly a little bit shaken by the encounter. Gonzalez didn't get the opportunity to take advantage that he may have been looking for. He's going to have to spend a little bit more time being a little bit more patient on the road in order to open up this position. But he's also now seen that Flores can lose it and can be beaten. Reynolds just wants to prove he's faster now and get down the road and set fastest laps. If he hangs around for a little bit too long, it could all go wrong.
And Reynolds needs to really just open up the throttle and disappear. Drop a gear and disappear is really what he needs to do. Gonzalez has now got the big weight on Gonzalez's neck. He didn't get past Reynolds. He's got to get past Flores. As you said, they continue along. I want to jump back here to Ray Kingsbury, who is still pushing against Justin Nazir and is just right there on the back. Again, half a second back, just holding on with pace. Not able to get a pass done at this moment, but is just hanging through and hanging on. They are running 6th and 7th together, and nothing too wild happening with them. As I say that, I do want to jump back up front because Michael Gonzalez is behind Flores here by 2.5 tenths as they come down out of the chute into turn 1 down the main straight. Gap 2 tenths of a second. Gap not dropping below 2 tenths though. I thought it was going to drop down to under 2 tenths into that 10th and some change area. It doesn't, but Gonzalez will stick on the back of Flores here as they go. So we're down to 16 minutes to go. Look at that around the outside. Gonzalez with a beautiful move on Flores, getting that pass done right as I had a different thought and I've completely lost it. But Gonzalez now in second place, but Reynolds 1.4 seconds here. Howie, are we thinking Gonzalez, Reynolds, Flores? Who in this top 3 do you think has it in the next 15 minutes?
Well, Reynolds has cleared that gap now. 1.5 seconds. The battling behind must have helped him. This is exactly where he needs to be. He needs to get that foot down for a lap or two to just get moving. And it looks to me as if he's getting the best of it right now. I'm looking at the other story of this race as well, the AMS, as you see Egel's dropped now back down behind all the pros, and that leaves Mofta ready to attack. There's a 2-car battle for the lead of the AMs. If Mofta can go from last to first in class, it'll be one of the greatest drives of this entire race. Screw any other battle we see. Mofta's had serious pace all day, and he's still on that bumper of the driver he needs to attack. Not seen too many of the Mustangs, but Edgel has been strong in it so far.
Edgel has been strong, but Mofta just has that pace right there. I do think if Mofta hadn't have spun it early on, I think the pressure kind of got to him being up in the front. I think if Mofta hadn't have spun it early on, this would be a completely different story in the front of the grid. But Mofta, in the position that Mofta's in, has done well for what I'd like to call a recovery drive to try to get up to the lead of class. Is currently running second place, half a second back, but is putting some very solid pressure while the leaders up front have opened up their gap and along. We hop on here with the gyro cam so we can watch and see how Mofta does here down this main straight. Hard braking into turn one. You see a slightly different line than the Mustang of Edgel. Gets a little bit deeper, a little bit slower on the corner exit, but I do think that this Corvette has a little bit more power to make up for it than the Mustang. So, and now it's just run a little bit higher, stay a little bit different of a line there, off the chute through that turn, and now we just run through the twisty bits, and you just really got to keep the flow going here. Stay behind the Mustang. If you're Mofta, just really hang out in the back, make sure you're pushing a little bit, try not to push too hard. There's a bit of a washout from Edgel, and Mofta nails that corner perfectly, closes that gap down to 0.2 of a second now, and is right there on the back and set up a beautiful pass.
Passing's possible here. We've now seen it for the win happen cleanly, and that lead gap has strung themselves out 1.5 seconds each way, so they're just about locked in without any big mistakes. But the passing isn't free either, as Mofta just, you can see someone's in the body language of a car whether they want to try and find those gaps and squeeze into them, and I would consider this trying to squeeze into gaps, sort of make out those sides, try and see if you can dive. Maybe he's the sort of driver to dive bomb someone in this class. Maybe we get to see a little bit more spite and drama come out of the AMs. Mofta has driven, though, prodigiously fast on the road here. Best lap has been in the 35s along the AMs, so he has sort of found his place in the hierarchy, but been such a strong driver to finish that sprint well, spin to the back, and an early mistake that I think anybody that could make, and then come all the way back anyway. I love it. Love to see it on this roller race.
Absolutely. We jump on board here with Cosgrove in 9th place. Cosgrove is trying to battle Matt Kingsbury for P8 with Fanning behind. Kevin Fanning in 9th place there, just behind another Corvette driver who is keeping some pressure up on the Porsche ahead. And we're seeing that, again, I said it earlier, the Porsche's long runs, they turn into different cars through the race, and I feel like we're starting to see that a little bit. And I tell you what else I'm starting to see. I'm starting to see it get a little dark here in the sky. I don't think that means rain is incoming. I will just say it's getting a little bit darker than it was. And as we check the weather forecast here, 92% humidity, cloudy, 22 degrees C, so good, comfortable ambient temperatures, but 22 mile an hour wind, 15:38 local time. And still no rain has fallen, even though, Howie, you told me it would rain. I'm going to blame you for that.
I am the commentator's curse, and you should know this. You've worked with me enough times to know that I can make or break any broadcast I'm on. I talk about something, and often the opposite result that we want ends up happening. I think there's been a little bit of rain god dancing in order to keep these drivers clean on the track. And what's interesting is if we get any rainfall on the circuit, these drivers might not even go for the wets at this point. It's not enough time, as Ratto gives up that P3 again to Flores. He must have muscled past a little bit earlier on down the road, but has just about earned it back. I'm looking at the wrong driver. It's Ratto on me. It's Ratto on me. I can't do it. I'm so sorry. I'm getting Mikolajek. I'm going to get it once this race. It's Ratto on Mikolajek. You talk about the French driver coming up at 2 a.m., but he has a result to show for it. Made up 9 positions from race start.
Absolutely does. French driver trying to prove a point that it doesn't matter the time of day you're racing. Racing's racing, and if you have the skill, you have the will, and you can make it work here. I want to jump back to this AM battle here because you see that Mofta has dropped pretty considerable time to Edgel here, as it seems like maybe just a little bit of an off-track moment happened there for Mofta and has dropped back just a bit. Edgel trying to get a car between would give some breathing room for the final 10 minutes if possible. Kevin Fanning putting a lot of pressure on Cody Cosgrove here. The Corvette versus the Porsche, kind of peaking there for a moment. Thought about a dive into the inside here into the hardest corner on circuit. Thought better of it, but Fanning looking very, very fast, very, very feisty, looking for something and to show for a P9 on the day. I want to check back in up front with our race leader. This is going to be Blake Reynolds. Gap 2.6 seconds. And how far is 2.6 seconds? Well, it's about that far here around Zandvoort to Michael Gonzalez, who battled for a long time in third place. And then Flores dropped down, and then Gonzalez finally got the pass done. But by that point, was it too little too late, or is Gonzalez saving something? 9.5 minutes left to go, so if you're saving anything in the tank, you're waiting until the last second, my friend. You probably need to let it go here a bit sooner.
I mean, it's time to strike now. We are effectively into our second sprint race of sorts, because these close drivers are looking to score those double points for the feature. They're looking to absolutely jump ahead in the championship this early on. Talked about Edgel a little bit on Brokaw. If you can get ahead of Brokaw, same car, same driving characteristics across the two, then suddenly Mofta's sort of muscled out, as with that long to go on a track where passing's been hard, he has to try and get past two people. It's going to be a serious struggle. I'm wondering if it even kicks off, or whether Mofta makes the move sooner. There's nothing really for Edgel to lose other than pride for being passed on the road like this, but he's inadvertently become a part of one of the biggest battles of this race.
Yeah, and I wonder if big dive down the inside and no contact comes together. That's going to open things up for Mofta. And the big loser out of that is Tim Brokaw. I don't think I need to show you what just happened there, but Edgel just completely pulling off the track. I'm going to imagine that is a broke front end, or is this just sportsmanship giving a position? Nope, that is Edgel to the pits. And I don't think I need to show a replay, but one more time just because we can. This is that moment here.
It's a really ambitious dive bomb, and it's the cost of making them on this circuit. Both cars looked like they had space, but that's a real race definer for this AM battle. You know, arguably actually doesn't really set the pro driver back, although it will be no doubt frustrating, and again, no doubt added to the protest list. But Mofta has used this opportunity, used his contact, and has taken back the win that he thinks he's entitled to on the road.
I would argue with Mofta's performance in the sprint, Mofta wouldn't say I think, I'd say I know, and you'd be hard fought to argue it with Mofta, except for, you know, the fact that there was a lap one spin, solo spin from Mofta, but Mofta now using a little bit of luck and a lot of skill to get his way up into 12th place, in the lead by 1.7 seconds on John Ebersol, who, if you don't remember, John Ebersol started in the pit lane of this race and has fought his way up to P13 through just pure consistency and luck, a little bit of lady luck playing as well. So that is a nice little 1-2 in AMs to see here. 6.5 minutes left to go, and this Matt Kingsbury, Cody Cosgrove, and Kevin Fanning battle still continues on. This is your closest battle on track, and they have 10 seconds to lead up to Ray Kingsbury, and then it's just spread out gaps for the front of the field. You can see it there on the mini map on the right hand side underneath the JPB logo. And if you like the look of the mini map, the JPB logo, you like my voice, you like Howie's voice, or you just like what we do here and you are a fan of sim racing, make sure you like, subscribe, ring the bells, do all the fun things here to support what we bring at the JP Broadcasting Network for completely free. There's dozens upon dozens of races a week, and as I'm saying that little ad reel, Matt Kingsbury gets loose, goes off, and there is Crossgrove getting the pass through. That's some breathing room for Fanning, or for him on Fanning, and now Fanning needs to put some pressure down quick to get around Kingsbury if he can. But round that out with like, subscribe, ring the bells, and every time we say that, some action happens.
I think that's actually the real curse, or a curse would imply something negative. I think you've brought in something positive if you can make the action calm. Every position on the road is worth 2 points in this feature. Doesn't sound like much, but you've seen many a championship get single-handedly decided. And is that Mofta again backwards in the wall? We're going to have to go backwards to check what actually happened there, but that's absolutely brutal. I have to see it. Have to see it.
Same place.
It's the Corvette! It's the Corvette! It's cursed! I love that car, but it makes it hard sometimes. It makes it hard to love, you know?
If that looks familiar to you, that's because this was his turn 1 spin. Or lap 1 spin. Okay, so not the same place, but we have seen drivers spin there.
You're hard to love! I want to love you! And then you just continuously disappoint me. Corvette, not Mofta. He's been a fantastic driver, and he's going to be so let down that he's lost it again. Both times, unforced. You know, can't protest to the stewards for that one. The car broke under me. The Corvette, you have to tame it. You have to be careful on the power, or it will just suddenly tell you, nope, you're out of here. Get into the wall. And I've had many encounters of that myself. In order to win races, I've had to tame it. And it's going to take a little bit of time and practice, even though he has the unbelievable pace.
I'm just speechless again. Honestly, I am just more than speechless again. Here's the dive from Fanning, trying to get past Kingsbury on the inside. This is that move that he's been trying to set up for several laps. You see a jerk to the right-hand side, trying to leave a wide berth to Kingsbury. They have let Cosgrove get away quite a bit, though, and now not able to get the pass done, settles in. I mean, wow. And while that was happening, Brian Sohn had his own moment here in the McLaren. Well, that was a bit of a peculiar wiggle.
The McLaren likes doing that. It's one of those like mid-engined heavy aero cars that like, it's not the same as the Corvette. Even though it looked like it does the same thing. The Corvette just gets out from under you in this very predictable way, whereas that McLaren just sometimes likes to disappear on you, as we just saw. That was the incident from earlier, I think we just saw, that got Fanning up ahead. So I don't need to rebroadcast that one to the world, although the drivers might not like to remember it. Yeah, that McLaren a little bit like the Ferrari. I'm not sure what really triggers its crazy spin. There's something, I must be the tyres, and it must be just putting too much heat into them and then them sort of giving up, and then the traction control deciding, I'll help, and it doesn't help at all. Because sometimes it just does the unexplainable in clean air. Despite being an incredibly fast car, I still think iRacing are going to nerf that car kind of soon. It's already gotten very big hits for the Petit Le Mans, which is running its first split later today.
And if you're interested in the Petit Le Mans running that, hey, get involved. If you've never ran iRacing, get involved. That's all you can do. Sim racing is a lot of fun here, and you know, it's something I enjoy. Howie, of course, it's something you enjoy. It's something all of our 18 drivers on track, well, 16 drivers now with 2 DNFs of Sohn and Ondo all enjoy. So, you know, just get involved. That's all you can ask for. Closest gap on track right now is Kingsbury to Fanning, gap 0.4 of a second. Fanning still not getting this pass done. 2 minutes to go on track. Our leader is going around through turn 4 now and is continuing through, and we should have this lap that they are starting plus 1 more on the board. So we'll get 29 laps, just shy of 30 of action here in our 45 minutes of racing, and Fanning still not able to make that pass happen. I think our big storyboard of the night right now, though, is Mofta and what could have been, and then it's Reynolds, Gonzalez, and Flores, and the defense that Flores did for so long until the defense fell.
I'm running Petit Le Mans. I'm going to be at LMP2, and I'm going to be terrorizing some GT3 drivers. I'm promising I'll do my best to avoid contact with all of you, but I will be sending it around the outside a little bit, as that's Rateau after another great race. You talked about the way that Porsche changes its handling as the race goes on, with that fuel tank in the rear getting lighter and lighter and the rear end getting a bit more unstable. And with 1 minute to go, it's another time where you're just kicking yourself for what's happened, as we see this car's just going to get itself a look. It's the curb. He took a little bit too much curb. That was completely explainable. you hit the same car for 45 minutes and you think, it'll be fine, I've done this a million times. That's painful.
Millimeters can make the difference, and that is a case where I do think genuine millimeters make the difference. Reynolds has started the final lap, I believe. We're going to jump with Justin Nasir here. There is Barney and Barney Jr. with the white flags as Nasir comes through. So final lap is through, and I mean, what can you really say for Blake Reynolds other than just fought hard, got to the front, and then said, adios, see you later. The Corvette's got the power under it, running a very, very strong race.
Well, the Corvette is tameable, and he's proved it. And he had to earn it on the road as well. Passing hasn't been free, but those were some great overtakes and a race that has seen a good number of incidents from drivers who haven't quite gotten it right. Reynolds has proven you can get in this car, you can be fast, you can win on the road. And Flores, with that P1, just didn't quite have the fight in him. Fanning and Kinsbury looking for this P9 to round out the final lap. Every position on this road is points paying. There's no cut-off for earning nothing. So everything is on the line. Well, not every 2 points on the line, but there's something on the line for the two of them, as Urbisol is going to take the unexpected AM win, I think. It's been a chaotic AM run, and he wasn't really in the running for it, but hasn't stopped him from claiming that as Reynolds crosses the line. A fantastic drive and a fantastic win as the checkered flag flies. The lights flash on the front of the car. Reynolds has earned a fantastic win at Zandvoort.
And that he has. Gonzalez going nice and slow across the line is going to savor this second place, with Flores coming across in third with Mikolajek. We hadn't talked about Paul Mikolajek closing that gap down near the end there into fourth place. Kevin Fanning has just a couple more attempts to get this pass done for P9, and this is going to be, if it's going to get it, it's got to be now, but runs it a little wide. It's going to dive it to the inside. This has been a close battle for this entire race, and I think in the end we'll see, can he get just enough slipstream down the line to go for the pass? He can't. It is going to be Kingsbury holding off Fanning there, but in the shocking turn of events, the case for Mofta of what could have been, for Ebersol, it's the case of what is. And for John Ebersol, it's starting the pit lane, it's win your class and win the AMs.
Those AMs have been scrappy and chaotic in this race, and to start from, we were gonna say that Mofta was the greatest story of the AMs, but I think winning from the pit lane is an even better story. I love the AM racing sometimes. It doesn't always get the spotlight that it totally deserves, but it can be magical, and I think both classes have provided some epic entertainment. As I love seeing the celebratory light flashes as drivers make it across the line. It's been an hour of collective racing for them. You do need to give them credit for making it through.
That it has an hour of consistency, an hour of runs, and in the end, it gives us the long run of action here today. But from Zandvoort, that is where this Simcar Grand Am GT3 class goes. Let's pull up the final results for you here today as we had them and give you one more overall recap. Blake Reynolds pulls out the win in 5.2 seconds. That's a little skewed because Michael Gonzalez was a little slow across the line, slowing down and just stopping and getting out of the way quickly. Anthony Flores in third place. Paul Mikolajek in fourth. Justin Nasir in P5. Ray Kingsbury in sixth. Roman Rateau was running up in that fourth place. Had that last minute spin, 60 seconds on the clock. Relegates down to P7. Cody Cosgrove in 8th place. Matt Kingsbury in 9th place. Kevin Fanning in P10, just barely missing out on that top 9. John Ebersol winning the AM class in 11th place. Again, started in the pit lane, but perseverance paid off. Tim Brokaw in P12. Karsten Quint in P13. Dylan Hunter in 14th. Marwin Mofta in P15. Rob Edgell in P16. And then Brian Sohn not finishing the race. Josh Ondo not finishing the race as well. That's your 18 cars as they went through. Let's see if we can find any of our drivers around here, and let's get a quick word in with them. Well, it's Blake Reynolds for starters, and Blake Reynolds pulling off a nice consistent run. And again, the car that I said was manufactured just down the road from me, well, I say just down the road, it's a couple hours, but Blake Reynolds putting the Corvette at the top, started down in 6th, but was able to bring it to the end. Tell me, how do you feel?
I feel good. I feel worn out. This track is exhausting, especially if you have a direct drive wheel A lot of super high load corners. It is crazy. Basically 2 bowl corners, 3 actually. Just a crazy track, a classic feel. This is my first time actually in a GT car. I've only raced here in Formula or high downforce cars, and I don't really count this as high downforce. So this was definitely a fun change, and man, you can I would set up passes six corners before they ever happen. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was interesting to watch you chasing down Anthony Flores there when you were in P2, and it seemed like for about 15 minutes, it was a case of you just trying to set up the pass, to set up the pass, to set up the pass, to get the pass. Kind of talk to me about what your mindset was there in the start of the race once you got up behind Anthony Flores and following that Porsche around. Did you plan on coasting for a little bit? Were you going to look for a quick pass? What was the goal?
I was just trying to keep my tires on it because after that first race, I kind of smoked the left front tire in those, however many laps it was, like 10, 12. I have no idea. I smoked the left front pretty bad. And I was like, ooh, I better take care of it here in this feature race. It's 3 times as long. So I started where I did. There was some incidents. I just kind of picked my way through very patiently. I didn't really push the car all too much. I had a fuel number I had to meet, so for the first probably 25 minutes, I was just meeting my fuel number, lifting, coasting right behind Anthony into the corners. And right when I decided to push, I think Anthony's front tires gave out just a little bit. So I made the pass, and then Gonzo made the pass not too long after, and he kept me honest. As I knew he would, especially after round 1.
Were you worried about getting passed in the end by Gonzalez? Because Gonzalez had a lot of pace and was right on the back of you for a long time. So, up in the booth, we were thinking once Gonzalez got around Anthony, it was going to be a very, very close battle for the win. But it seems like you were able to pull out just enough of a gap.
Yeah, I had saved enough tire. I was pushing, not full out, but I was pushing enough, and I knew I had something in the tank if he started gaining even more. So I was just trying to keep, it was like a 3-second, 2.5-second gap. I was just trying to keep that. I was very comfortable with that. But yeah, super fun race. Love this Corvette. It's my second ever race in this thing.
I will tell you right now, the Corvette is a beautiful GT3 car. Again, I'm not saying that just because they're made a couple hours down the road from me. I'm just saying that because I think they're amazing, and seeing them race in person was a lot of fun. But with all my biases out of the way and my excitement to see a Corvette in the front of a GT3 grid in iRacing, Blake, is there anyone you want to thank, anyone you want to shout out before we let you go celebrate this win?
Sure thing. My beautiful purple Solpec Precision Racing car. Solpec, of course, title sponsor. Abruzzi Racewear. Penguin RC for sponsoring the championship, Too Fast Racing for putting it on, you guys for broadcasting. This is the second race for y'all, I think. I think so, yeah. Yep. I'm sure it was good. I'll watch it back tomorrow. It should be a good watch back. Anyone else? My teammates I race with, Ray Kingsbury, Cody Crosgrove, Karsten Quint. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm literally going finger to finger, like, do I have everybody? Yeah, I think so. All right, I think that's it.
Awesome, and a big thank you to Blake. Congratulations on your win, and we're going to let you go enjoy it. We're going to grab Michael Gonzalez and talk to him since he finished in second place.
Thank you.
All right, and Michael Gonzalez, our second place finisher on the night, and not at all a simple second place, I would say. Fighting very hard, following Blake Reynolds for a bit, and then getting past Anthony Flores in second place. Maybe with a little bit more time, could have found his way to close that gap for the lead, but overall, a good second place. Michael, talk to me about your race here at Zandvoort.
Yeah, I mean, I think both of them were just pretty much straightforward races. Just had to kind of keep Blake honest and keep up with him. But it's the same story as it was at Spa, and that the car just fires off, and then the handling never really changes. It just gets slower and slower. I think that's just a characteristic of the car. I don't really think there's anything we can really much do about it. But yeah, I was trying different lines, trying to match lines with Blake, and just through the whole flat sector, like sector 2. He had like 2/10, 3/10 on it. There was really nothing I could ever do. Even when I got clear into second, it was pretty much game over by then. I had to be on his back bumper in second or nothing. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, P2 in the sprint, P2 in the feature is good enough, I guess.
I mean, it's a good haul of points, and I got to ask, Michael, what is the mindset difference that you bring to the sprint versus the feature race? Of course, 15 minutes versus 45 minutes, the length difference is there, but knowing that the top 8 is inverted, which race do you push harder in? Which race do you give more to?
Probably the sprint. It's 15, 20 minutes, so it's just kind of pushing to see what the car is capable of. And can pretty much tell by halfway through the sprint in terms of how your feature is going to go. So it wasn't the greatest thing when halfway through the sprint, the nose started to fall off just a bit, as I was expecting it to, and it just stayed true to that. But yeah, I mean, the sprint's all about figuring out what the car is really capable of, what it's really going to do, just so you can take that info into the feature and kind of place it into the certain corners that it might be better at, and maybe use something at the very end of it. But yeah, the sprint's just all about figuring out the car, and then the feature's about using what you've learned.
Yeah, and it was fun to watch through. I got to ask you about the next race coming up on the 24th of October. It's the Red Bull Ring, another beautiful track, nice and fun. It's deceptively simple. What are your plans? What's your aspirations and the goals for the Red Bull Ring?
Well, my worst track on iRacing. So, I have no idea. I've done maybe 3 races there, so I don't really know what to expect. All I know is that there's a bunch of flat corners, and the Macca hates flat corners, so I don't know, maybe put on some happy tunes and hopefully have happy brain times during the race when the car is not letting me have that. So we will see. I have no idea what it's going to do. It might be an absolute mess of a race on my end.
Well, it's a week out, so we'll see what happens. I'm curious to see if happy fun times are had or where this goes. But before I let you go, Michael, anyone you want to thank, anyone you want to shout out, the floor is yours.
Yeah, just want to thank you guys for putting on the broadcast, doing excellent work. I know Blake watched it back last week. I've also watched it back too. Just always great to have a strong broadcast partnership for any of these races. Everybody over at Penguin RC, Brian Son, of course, he puts in so much effort into making the setups and everything. Like I said, I'm not barging him with the setups. I think it's just the nature of the car, but he's doing everything that he possibly can to make it as fast as possible. And then everybody at the whole Penguin RC group, they're tons of fun to hang around, and always a blast to do these races with them.
Awesome. And a big shout out to you, Michael. Congrats on the second place there. And we will see you next time at the Red Bull Ring.
All right. We'll see you then. Thanks so much.
Thank you. And Howie, I don't see any other drivers hanging about here waiting to tell us about their race. So, I think it's curious to me that neither of the drivers thought to thank the parents, the partners, or, anything like that. We always joke about you got to thank the partners or the parents, depending on age and depending on what you're doing for letting you run. Neither of them did that, but they did thank the sponsors and they did thank us. So, you know what? I'll give a pass on them this week.
Let's not be too picky. Let's not be too picky on exactly who they thank, or we're going to be here for days, I think.
That we could, and I'll tell you right now, it's 10:47 p.m. here on the Eastern Seaboard. Howie, it's probably about 3:47 a.m. for you, if I had to make a guesstimate. So this is going to be, ladies and gentlemen, where we send things off. Once again, make sure you like, subscribe, ring the bells, do all the fun things here to support the JP Broadcasting Network. On behalf of Howie Burrows, my name is Bradley Dalton. We've taken you start to finish here at the Circuit Zandvoort. Be sure to join us next time on the JP Broadcasting Network, where we'll take you start to finish yet again. Good night.